Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is Franchise Fanatic and welcome back to the channel. And today, if you guys, this is another Marvel related video. Today we're going to be tackling actually Venom 2 or Venom Let There Be Carnage. Now, I did review this film. I don't quite remember the review and score that I gave it, but I enjoyed it. Essentially, I'm not going to re-review the film. That's not the point of this video. But to say the least, I do think that Venom 2, while a little shorter than the first one, was a fun film, but it had some problems. You know, I think that I don't know, it felt different, and I don't want to say that's a bad thing, but some of the pacing was a bit weird. I'm going off on a bit of a nitpick tangent just for that, because it's really not that big of a deal. But you know, there are elements of this film that work really well. I think Tom Hardy, you know, Eddie Brock and Venom kind of splitting up and then kind of getting together as, you know, good friends. You know, I think that Carnage is a good villain. He's better than Riot in Venom 1. So, you know, there's a lot of things going for it. I think Andy Serkis is a pretty good director. There's some good shots. I think that it kind of, you know, made the whole Lethal Protector thing pretty good, but I want to talk about specifically the end credit scene with, of course, you know, Venom and Eddie going to the MCU. Now, when this film came out, we were like, what the fudge is going on? You know what I mean? What's happening? You know, we don't understand. And, of course, it gets that big, awesome scene with, you know, Venom, you know, in the MCU, seeing Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and then we see in No Way Home, of course, that Eddie Brock is, you know, in a random bar in the MCU, and then he kind of gets transported back to the Sonyverse, and we see a little bit of Venom symbiote goo latched onto the MCU, so pretty cool stuff. But that also, of course, leads into Morbius, which is spoilers, but there's so much to this film that is really strange, because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, there are elements in the Morbius post-credit scenes that don't make any sense, or it's completely random. It makes no sense at all. It does make sense. Without spoiling it, I think the people that did want to see Morbius probably already effing saw it because it's making like $2 at the box office. But I do think that there are elements where people could get confused, and I understand that because, you know, there's a character that comes back in you know, from one prison, from the MCU to another prison in the Sony Marvel Venom freaking Morbius whatever verse, and then he gets transported, or he stays in the Morbius verse, and we meet a little bit of an interaction between Michael Morbius and this character, and it is kind of cool that Venom Let There Be Carnage kind of set up the whole Sony merging with the MCU type thing, because really, you know, and I said this before, but it's such a great thing about the MCU is that, you know, if you want to rewatch the entire MCU from Iron Man to Shang-Chi, No Way Home, whatever the latest MCU film is, you now have to watch Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and Venom 1 and 2, and Morbius. You know, all these films, even though, you know, technically all those other films like Venom, Morbius, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, whatever, even though they're not technically canon to the MCU, you know, they don't take place in the same universe as the MCU, they take place in a multiverse that is part of the MCU. So really, all of these epic films, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, but, you know, they're good. I wouldn't, you know, watch them every day, but they're alright. You know, now all these different films, they're coinciding and they're all going to the MCU, you know, in some variation. You know, it's a multiverse thing, it's a whatever. So I think it's really cool, you know what I mean? And the fact that Venom Let There Be Carnage, you know, I watched that post-credit scene and I was like, what the fudge is going on? You know, he's in like a freaking really weird-looking, like, grungy, like, you know, horrible, like, Gotham City-looking shack, and then all of a sudden he gets transported to the MCU, and you see Tom Holland. I literally screamed. I was like, oh my god, when I saw it in the theater, you know, because the movie itself is good. You know, I think that it's a little short, kind of like Morbius. It has some good action, some good, you know, acting, you know, some good writing. I think it's pretty fun. It's nothing, you know, it's not the best movie of all time, but I think Venom 2 is, you know, pretty good. And the fact that they ended that film off on that extremely high note, you know, I mean, I don't like saying, oh, you know, just go to the end credit scene or just, you know, stick to for that, but I think, you know, the film is good, but I do think that end credit scene justifies the entire freaking movie, you know what I mean, because it's such a good scene, because it literally lays the groundwork of what's going to come in the future with No Way Home, with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness coming up May 6th, you know, so there's so many really cool things in there that is really interesting, and I think that if Marvel plays their cards right, I think we're in for a very good treat. And I mentioned this in my Morbius review, but you know, Morbius is, I gave it a B-. It's not a great film, but it's not bad. It's just a good, okay Marvel film. You know, like, I'll buy it on Blu-ray, I'll watch it again, I don't hate it, but, you know, it's nothing special. But the fact that they're trying to, you know, make these characters, and which is really stupid, because all you just gotta have to say is, oh, Disney owns everything now. Disney, they're buying up everything. They probably own me at this point, which I don't mind. But, you know, they're trying to kind of bring everything together. And I think it's cool that we're getting, Blade's in here now, and Deadpool's in here now, and, Professor X is in the Doctor Strange 2 trailer, and, all this. And then you have the Sony movies that, Sam Raimi films and the Mark Webb films, those are older films. Not that old, but compared to the, 2022, pretty freaking old movies. And the fact that they are not, they're not like, they're not magically in the MCU, but the fact that they're magically kind of in a multiverse related to the MCU, it just makes the MCU bigger and better. And I hope that we get, I hope Sony can make better films than Morbius. And again, I don't hate Morbius, but it is probably the weakest of, it's probably tied with Venom 2, in my opinion, I think. But, they're not bad movies, but it is really cool that Venom 2 did that, because Venom 1 was a good film. I don't mind it. I think it's a fun movie. But it wasn't anything that, special in terms of like the grandiose scale of Marvel and the MCU and the Sonyverse, because at that time Venom was very new to, we don't know what the fudge is going to be going on in this franchise, in this universe, right, the Venomverse. And then Venom 2 just drops a freaking bomb, and they're like, oh, he's in the MCU now. And yeah, they did kind of F it up, because, Eddie Brock is really only in the MCU for like the entirety of the No Way Home movie, and then when that film, when Doctor Strange wraps up his little spell, he gets sucked back up. So it's kind of a missed opportunity. But, there is a little bit of symbiote goo, so I guess, that's that. But it is cool, to just kind of reflect and think about Venom 2. It was really the ball starter, It was kind of the first one to get this stuff rolling. And I do think that's really cool. Again, I think Venom Let There Be Carnage is a really good movie. I think it's a little short. I think that the whole love thing between Carnage and Shriek or whatever is just kind of whatever. But, it works. I think Carnage is a good villain. I think the guy that plays him, I forget his name, I know it. Tobias Beckett in Solo, freaking tip my tongue. It's like Radagast. Gonna pull an insect. I know what it is. I just can't say it. But it's like a mental block. But I do think that it is very much a franchise and a film that really, like I said, Iron Man laid the groundwork for the MCU. This film kind of laid the groundwork for the Sony joining with the. If this never happened and if No Way Home never happened, we never would have had Tobey and Andrew in the MCU. Effectively making their films canon to the MCU in a multiverse. It's not that confusing, but it can be if you're not paying attention. And, I know certain people are like, oh man, I haven't watched Loki and WandaVision and it's like, dude, you're behind like freaking 2 years, The MCU keeps getting bigger, seemingly every day. And the fact that we are getting all these different universes now kind of in the same canon, so to speak, is very, very cool. And I think, like I said, Venom 2 is really the one that made me at least go, wow, they're doing this. This is real. This is actually going to happen. And, Venom 2, it's a fun movie. I like watching it. I rewatched it a few weeks ago. I think it has kind of like a Tim Burton 1989 Batman feel. It's kind of like gothic and kind of grim. It reminds me of Gotham City with Venom running around, chewing people's faces off. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And I'm sure Batman did that at one point in one of the comics. I don't know. But it is kind of cool to have that, again, Tim Burton style. I don't think it's the best thing in the world, but, when I watched the 1989 and Batman Returns, that's one thing I like about that film, is that Gotham City feels very different to, say, any other Batman rendition. It's not my favorite, but it's different. And I think they try to kind of, Andy Serkis, the director, tried to kind of replicate that in a sense. That's the feel I got with that film, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and again, that end credit scene, man, is still freaking cool. And it really was like there's not many holy crap moments in terms of post-credit scenes. There's some where I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's really sick. But I've never, like I stood up in my seat in the theater. I was like, oh my God, And my mom was like, what are you doing? What's happening? Where's the fire? But it was just so cool. Because I'm like, they're doing this, Like, as a huge comic book guy. And I know I talk a lot about Star Wars. And Star Wars, it goes Ninjago, Star Wars, and then maybe like Marvel, DC, and all the other amazing franchises. Harry Potter, Jurassic, or whatever. Tintin, what have you. But Marvel is a big, big part of my franchising life, if you could say that. But, it's really cool. And the fact that they're going to keep doing this, hopefully, if Sony can make good films, like Morbius, hopefully a little better than that. Critic reviews don't really matter, I'll be honest. They don't. It's just you form your own opinion, you go home, I actually don't like reviews. I like to review for myself because it's my opinion. But, like if a film, Morbius is getting like, like a 17%. And, it's making like I said, $2-3. Of course, it's hyperbole, but it's not making a whole lot of money. And, mainly because people are sheep, they go, 17%? Well, I'm not watching that. It's shit. And then they go home, But if you have a brain that functions, you should, watch a film for yourself and then decide. So maybe that's a reason why it's not making any money. I don't know. But, again, it does not deserve 17%. But, it's not the best film I ever made. It's kind of in a weird gray area. gray spot, but you know, it is what it is. But Venom 2, I think, is a strong film. It's not the best film ever made, but it's, you know, it's pretty good for what it was. And again, man, that end credit scene again really did lay the groundwork for a lot of cool things that happened. I mean, you know, it's really ingenious what they were able to do with Sony and Disney, Marvel, you know, all that kind of bringing it together. You know, because No Way Home is just one of the best Marvel films of all time, in my opinion. Not just because Andrew and Toby are in it. You know, it's genuinely a really good film, but you know, that was cool. You know, that was pretty cool. So I think that is a very strong factor into making Sony and Marvel really kind of want to love each other even more. You know what I mean? So there was that whole thing where like Tom Holland's like, oh, you know, Sony, you know, they sold off Spider-Man, and then they're like, wait a minute, you can make a good Spider-Man movie that everyone universally loves with Tom Holland? Oh, we want it back. And then Tom Holland was like, wait a minute. Let's share the profit, you know, and that's what they're doing now. So hopefully, if they can continue to make good products, you know, we can get the future of the Sony, Marvel, MCU, all that, bringing it together, because that's really cool. You know, I've never seen a movie franchise do that, where they take, you know, old movies like the Sam Raimi trilogy, very old movies, and then somehow make them relevant, not just for those fans, but for MCU fans. It's really cool what they did. Anyway, tell me in the comments down below what you think about the whole Sony-Marvel collide thing. I think it's a good idea if they continue to make quality films. If they're going to drop off in quality and just get worse and worse and worse, I think you should definitely, you know, just shelve it and say, screw it, we're done. But at this point, what they are doing is very cool, and I've never, you know, the fact that Endgame came out and we're still getting Marvel content that is like, you know, worth, you know, I mean, like worth seeing. Because when I saw Endgame, I was like, well, they did it. You can't make a better movie than Endgame for Marvel. Like, it's the ultimate conclusion of Marvel. It's like 3 hours, everything's touched upon, it's a fantastic film. You know, and then they just continue to keep making good films. So again, I'm really impressed with what they're doing. And you know, I know a lot of people don't like Venom and Morbius, but you gotta admit it is pretty freaking cool what they're able to do. Is, you know, kind of bringing everything together in one kind of universe. Just saying, oh, it's a different multiverse. You know, that's all you gotta do, and it's simple, but it works. You know, I think that's what's really cool. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I wanted to kind of talk about this for a while. You know, this wasn't really a review on Venom 2, but I just kind of wanted to, again, talk upon that end credit scene and what it kind of meant to me as a huge Marvel fan. Anyway, can't wait for the future of the MCU and whatever Sony's doing. It should be a lot of fun if they play their cards right. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.